working from home. So with that being said, some of the services that we can offer to you, like we spoke about last month, are still kind of limited. But again, if there's anything we can do from you virtually, we have been, when I said we were talking about field consultants, we've been doing a lot of virtual stuff such as this with one-on-one with customers. So if there's anything at your facility that you need help with safety-wise, and we can do that virtually, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll do our best at that until the governor allows us to go back out in the field. So as of right now, they're telling us it could, might be January. So hopefully that changes, but right now it's still January. With that being said, some upcoming webinars that will be available to you guys. I know Lori's been sending them out to you as we send them to her, but I just wanted to remind you of a couple that are coming up, or a few of them tomorrow. For any of you guys that are public employers, we're doing a webinar on public employer risk reduction program. They're Focus 4. So one of their folks will be speaking on that. I believe it's at 1 o'clock, and that's tomorrow, September 10th. Another one coming up on the 15th of September is avoiding hazard communication program mistakes. So that will be on the 15th. That will be at 11 o'clock in the morning. On the 22nd is a look at real fire hazards. So we have a gentleman from the Fire Bureau who is going to come and talk to us on that. That's the 22nd, again at 11. And then heat stress and cold stress on September 29th, also again at 11 o'clock. Those are 4 webinars in September. And the goal is that we continue to do these webinars in the near future anyway, every Tuesday. So that's kind of the goal there. And then the last thing that I have, Safety Congress. So this was just announced yesterday. The 2021 Safety Congress is going to be virtual. So I don't have a date on that. I apologize. I know it's going to be in March. It's going to be a 2-day event, but it's going to be virtual just like it was last spring because of the COVID. So, but outside of that, that's all I have. Thanks, Lori.
Okay, we're going to pass things over to Ryan Matthews, who is on our Orrville Area Safety Council Steering Committee, and he will introduce our speaker. Ryan.
Thanks, Lori. It's my privilege today to introduce Dr. Marianne Bowden. She has been in the mental health profession since 1983 and has been the owner of Bowden and Associates Psychological and Counseling Services since 2000. She has a doctorate in counseling psychology from Kent State University. She completed her internship at Northeastern Ohio University's College of Medicine and her psychology residency at the Counseling Center of Wayne and Holmes counties. She has experience evaluating and treating children, adolescents, and adults. She specializes in treating victims of sexual abuse, mood and anxiety disorders, developmental disorders, and psychological evaluations. Dr. Bowden has conducted numerous trainings for mental health, law enforcement, and community professionals statewide and nationally. She has been on staff at the Worcester Community Hospital, and she's a member of the American Psychological Association and the Ohio Psychological Association. She is a long-standing member of the Wayne County Child Sexual Abuse Task Force and served on the board for the Children's Advocacy Center of Wayne County. Dr. Bowden is licensed as a psychologist and serves as a member of the Ethics Committee and Colleague Assistance Program of the Ohio Psychological Association. She has been recognized by the American Psychological Association's Psychologically Healthy Workplace Award Best Practices for her work with employee assistance programs and wellness at Certified Angus Beef. Most recently, she was named the Child Advocate of the Year in Wayne County by the Voices of Children Committee and the Wayne County Children's Services Board. Please welcome Dr. Marianne Bowden.
Thank you, Ryan. It's always a humbling experience to have someone read my stats. Thank you for the Orrville Chamber for inviting me to participate. And I want to especially thank Lindsay for the stats that she provided, the information she provided, about how the mental health problems that have affected our county and have affected all of us. That's why I want to talk to you today about what we call pandemic stress. And hopefully Ryan has got some slides up. Have you got some slides up? Okay. We're trying to get slides up. But in the meantime, okay, you can hear me okay? All right, thank you. All right, as he's trying to get the slides up for us, I'm going to just keep talking in terms of some random thoughts during the pandemic. Keeping in mind that the pandemic is a very unprecedented situation, and unprecedented is one of those words that we are using repeatedly to describe this. So some random thoughts, such as, I'm an introvert. I love working at home with my cats and dogs. I'm happy, don't bother me, and don't expect me to be happy to come back to work. Or there can be, I'm high anxiety and OCD. I have planned for this pandemic my entire life. I'm ready, no problem for me. I have many tasks and many masks and lots of hand sanitizer and expect you to do the same. And by the way, I told you so. Or you might have heard someone say, I hate being home. I can't go out to eat. I can't go to sports. I can't be with my friends. My spouse is driving me crazy. I'm walking the dog 6 times a day. Help! I'm ready to go to work. Just don't make me wear a mask. Or you might hear someone say, how am I supposed to teach my kids, do my job, be home, make decisions about my kids' schooling and sports, and deal with all of this with no toilet paper? Okay? Or, okay, I see people are trying to, are we on? All right, I'm just going to keep talking.
So Ryan, you're going to need to stop share and try again because we don't see MaryAnn's slides.
We had it before. There we go. Okay, are we okay? All right. So at this point, you may also hear people say things such as, it's all a conspiracy and will be over after the election. I may pick a political party, so I don't wear a mask. And you must be pick the other political party because you do wear a mask. So there are no right or wrong to these, but these are good examples, I think, of all the different ways we are thinking and responding to this unprecedented, very unique situation. All right, Ryan, I'll let you hit the next slide. Maybe I see that. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're having technical difficulties. All right. Can we hit the next slide? There we go. Thank you. Okay. So one of the things to really remember about this is we are all in the same storm. It's the same. We are all dealing with the same storm, but we are in different boats. For example, some people might be in a battleship ready for war, where other people might be in a personal yacht enjoying the beautiful sunset. Okay, next slide. Or you might be in a life raft in a flood. Or you could be on a raft but in the rapids, where it's a wonderfully fun experience. Next slide. So what you need to remember about these boats is that some were big and strong and powerful. Some were designed for rescue only. Some were for fun and were exciting, and some were very scary. Next slide. And part of what makes this stress so incredibly difficult right now is no one knows for sure if their boat will be able to weather this storm. So even though we're all in the same storm and we all have different boats, the pandemic stress of this is that no one's sure if their boat is going to be able to get through this storm or not, because it is so unprecedented and unique. Next slide. This is such an incredibly unique time and situation, and I say this to people over and over again because what we are experiencing right now is so different from anything we have ever experienced. And thus, there's no roadmap or GPS to follow, and there's no reliable frame of reference. Next slide. And part of that is that there's no reliable markers for what's safe or not safe. And so the stress that that creates is tremendously difficult. All right, next slide, if you can find it. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind right now is that everything is intensified by this pandemic stress. It's like this gigantic, huge, dark cloud that never goes away. So no matter what you do, the stress is always there. And that every decision we make is made through the lens of the COVID. And again, this is something we've never really had to deal with before, is a sense of this huge stressor that just is looming constantly. Next slide. Many of you who've heard me talk before know that I always say, one of the things I love about being a psychologist, there are many things, but one is that we study everything. All right, next slide. So, being good psychologists out there in the midst of the pandemic, we are studying everything we can to figure out what's going on. So what we found was that initially grief and sadness were the predominant emotions. Okay? Initially there was a sense of incredible uncertainty and a need to work together. People were worried, but mostly sad and scared, and were willing to, wait it out, to shelter it in, hunker down, until we could figure this out. Next slide. What has happened, however, is now people are just really angry. And what we are seeing is that emotions and reactions are changing really fast and sometimes for no reason at all. And that everyone is experiencing multiple losses. Next slide. Okay. You may have heard of the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, or stages of grief, or the steps of grief. This is that when we experience any kind of loss, it doesn't have to be a death, but any kind of loss, such as loss of freedom, loss of work, loss of our ability to stay healthy, we experience all of these different types of emotions and behaviors. Usually what happens is initially we feel denial. And that's that tendency to say it didn't happen, it didn't really happen, I don't know what to do, this is a dream, I must be making, if somebody's making this all up, it can't be the truth. Then we go into anger, all right? And then we get really angry that we are having to deal with this loss, that the situation has happened, that we have to deal with it. And then we can go into depression, where we feel overwhelmed, helpless, sad. And then one of the stages is bargaining. We struggle to find meaning, all right? We have to tell our story at that point. We want to talk about it. We want to try to figure out, why are we going through all of this? And then hopefully at the end, there's acceptance. All right, next slide. In looking at these phases of grief, and for all of you who are working in the community with your own employees and family members and others, I was hoping that perhaps these kinds of things can help you in helping those that you're working with who are going through all of these emotions. Because when we are experiencing loss, we don't experience them in this nice even steps. Usually what it is we go from one to the other, and we bounce from denial to depression to anger to denial to bargaining, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, until at some point we can get to acceptance. Right now, because we are in the midst of such a huge, unprecedented situation, people's emotions are all over the place. And so perhaps what you can do with your employees and your families and friends is, when they are in denial, what we have found is offering information and communication can be most helpful. Okay? So at that point, don't feel like you have to fix anything, but just give them more information. Same with the anger. More information and communication, indicating your awareness that they're having these feelings and that it is such an unusually difficult time for everybody, but helping them to know that we can communicate and find a way to talk about those differences. When people are experiencing depression, what's really important at that point is emotional support. And so that may be you just letting them know you know what they're feeling, or it might be also helping them to connect with support groups, mental health counseling. There are a number of different types of support and hotlines out there now. And I have to admit that you know, a lot of this has brought forth a lot more support groups online and phone groups for people in order to access these things now. If someone's dealing with bargaining, then what you can offer them is guidance and direction. Let me help you figure out what happens next. Same thing with acceptance. So hopefully these be some ways that you can sort of take a look at how people are feeling, and then decide, give yourself some guidance in terms of how to move in the next steps to help them. Okay, next slide. I really wanted to include this slide because I think this really is a good way to describe how this grief process takes place. It is not this nice line on the one side of the slide where we very nicely go from one feeling into the next, and then we ultimately end up, you know, feeling wonderful. No, what it usually is this jumble. And so again, keeping in mind with the people that you work with, one day they may feel hurt, the next day they'll feel acceptance, the next day they may feel angry, and you have to be able to help them realize that the whole process of dealing with such a huge stressor as this pandemic is going to create many, many, many crazy feeling emotions that right now are very normal. Next slide. What we have also found is that kind of how you coped as a kid is how we're coping now. It's sort of like we're all going back to our default in coping seems to be how we were brought up. Because I often hear people saying, oh my gosh, I thought I knew how to deal with all these things. Well, when you're dealing with something as huge as this, it's like our default goes back to that which we know best, which is what happened when we were kids. So if you're an anxious kid, you're going to continue to be very worried and have multiple contingency plans for everything. Okay. Next slide. If you tended to be afraid or to freeze and not know what to do, you're going to feel helpless. You won't know what to do. You may try to hide emotionally or physically. Next slide. If you were angry and acted out as a kid, well, no one will want to be around you right now because you're probably angry and lashing out about everything. Next slide. If you're a leader, you're going to be taking charge, and others then might end up resenting that. Next slide. So again, keeping in mind why all these emotions and different behaviors. Well, remember, there's no reliable markers for what's safe or not. This is such an unprecedented situation. None of us have ever experienced anything like this. So we really don't know what's safe or not safe. And what is happening now is what I think is safe may not be what you think is safe. And that leaves us all feeling very confused. Okay? And what happens now also is that we're all trying to protect our way of thinking and acting because we don't know who or what to trust. And so again, this is part of where I think we find it important to remember that the mental health issues are because we are in such an unusual state of mind right now, and the emotions are so incredibly intense and confusing, and we have to be very aware that everyone's trying to protect their own way of thinking and behaving because they just don't know what to do. Next slide. What are some things you can do that can help? Well, remember, everyone's boats are different. Okay? Go back to those pictures of boats. And some were ready for battle, some were on the yacht watching the beautiful sunset. But everybody's boat is different and no boat is right or wrong. And so remember those pictures of the boats. And also remember that some had resources and some didn't. Next slide. And keep in mind that all of this is not easy for all of us, all of the people we work with. This is a really difficult time. And so we have to practice a lot of patience, tolerance, and grace because this is a really big storm. One of the things that can be helpful is trying to focus on gratitude, those things that are okay right now. In fact, okay, I do have multiple Purell dispensers in my office, and I don't have to worry about running out, or that I do have masks, or that I have the ability to, at the end of the day, go home and take off my mask and relax. The other thing is to really focus on one day at a time, because in this pandemic situation, as I'm sure you are all aware and have experienced many times, is that what they tell us to do today at 9 o'clock in the morning might change by noon, and that might change again by 3 p.m. And then it might change again the next day. So in terms of what the guidelines are and what we're supposed to do and how to do them, it is so constantly shifting and changing that you really, really have to focus on just one day at a time. Next slide. So here's a really easy exercise that you can use, you can share with your employees, with your family and friends, in what we call ways to just keep your emotions focused and grounded. So an easy thing to do, and you can do it all right now if you want, just look around you and find 5 different things that you can see, okay? And then identify them, okay? Such as for me, it would be my monitor, my phone, my keyboard, my desk, my box of Kleenex. Okay? So what are 4 things that I can touch? Well, they could be the same exact things that I saw around me. Then find 3 things that you can hear. Well, that might be the buzz of my lights in my room, and or it could be somebody's phone ringing or a car outside. And then look at 2 things you can smell. Well, I have a cup of coffee on my desk, and perhaps the nice air freshener that I have. And then find one thing you could taste. Okay? So right now that would be my coffee. Okay? Or it could be, say, a candy bar or something else. Okay? So this is a way for you to just focus on what you are experiencing, makes you take a look at all the different things around you, your sights, your senses, your smells, and it can make us sort of take a break for a moment. Next slide. Now, I do not recommend this, but I put it in because this was my husband's take on this. Okay? He said, I think wine works. See, 5 bottles. Touch 4, climb 3 of them, open 2 and inhale the aroma, and taste the one that smells better. All right? So that's to keep you laughing and smiling in the midst of the pandemic. But not necessarily recommending that you use wine as a means of coping. Next slide. But one ways to help are reaching out for help in terms of someone to talk to. The mental health counseling, the hotlines. Lindsay referred to some of the things that that her organization has been putting together. Wonderful things that can help us to connect with each other, to talk about the craziness of the situation, the sense of sadness, the sense of loss, the sense of lack of motivation, the lack of energy. And right now, most mental health folks are doing phone and telehealth sessions, which we have found to be really easy for people to pick up the phone and to call and talk to someone, and you don't have to leave your home and or go to an office at a specific time. So there are many, many mental health resources out there that can help. We have also found that this pandemic has helped in terms of the telehealth, Zoom, and a number of other platforms like that have come to boy, they have just absolutely met the call we needed in terms of being nicely developed and HIPAA safe to help people be able to get the mental health care that they need. So even though we are in unprecedented times where we're having to deal with many things that we never ever had to deal with, we're also seeing some really good things, such as these kinds of video platforms that are making telehealth very available to people at times when they were not available before. All right, that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Oh, let me get my video back on so you can see me. So thank you, Marianne, so much for sharing some of those tips and giving us some perspective to deal with all of the challenges that are going on in our world right now. I didn't see any questions pop up in the chat box for Marianne. If you do have a question and you'd like to post that, just put that in there now and we'll call on you. So as we did with the August session, we will be posting a recording of this on the orrvillesafety.com website. We'll have an archive there of all of the presentations for FY21 so that you can go back and look at those. For Safety Council participants that are not able to join us here at the noon hour, we'll be able to see those at a later time. That link will be included in your newsletter that is distributed out towards the end of the month so that you have the information you need for the next session. We will be meeting again on the second Wednesday in October, and our topic will be on wellness and the importance of developing wellness programming within your workplace, and one thing that you can do to be well and healthy right now. That'll be presented by Angela Gaffney, who is the president of Lifestyle Wellness, I believe is the name of her company. Might be a little off on that. I don't have it right in front of me right now. But we hope that you will join us in October for our wellness discussion and continue to engage with the Safety Council program and upcoming topics. If you do have suggestions for things that you would like to see covered here, please send those to me, and I will share those with the Safety Council Steering Committee, and we'll talk about what else we can provide to make this beneficial for you as we go through this year. So things that are top of mind for you, please let us know that. So we had 57 participants on the call today, so thank you so much for joining in, and we hope that you have a great day. Thanks again. So we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Lori.
Take care, Lori. We'll see you.
So, thank you all.